better than nothing.
All right, everybody, and welcome back to Squat Cobbler. This is episode 37, and in typical awesome 1980 sitcom fashion, it's a very special episode of Squat Cobbler. I am Mike Belinsky, at Official Pagan on everything, and joining me, as always...
I am the fox, and I don't get to do what I want. I'm Kelly Toole, at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
Well, Kelly, why doesn't the fox get to do what he wants?
Get right into it. We're going to do, on this very special edition of Squat Cobbler, Mike and I are going to be just talking about the variety of shows we do, a little bit of the process we go through to prep the stuff, get it out, methods we do to capture it, edit it, etc. Why we decided to do this in particular is there's been some developments. What you'll hear as we kind of talk through there is we leverage pretty heavily Google Hangouts on Air as our mechanism to record these shows. And over time, you used to be able to just go into Hangouts and fire them up, and then it became merged with YouTube. So you go into YouTube's and you create an event, and you can use Hangouts on Air, and it all works out great. It served us really well over hundreds of episodes in the different Squat Cobbler, Nurture and Support, Snark Alec Radio.
That is crazy. I've never really, I guess it has crossed my mind before, but I've never really stopped and thought we should at some point figure out how many of these we've actually done together.
Yeah, it's not a small number. That started because
no, it really is hundreds.
It is hundreds. I'd have to even go back on the calendar and kind of figure out a little bit where things went through. I shared with Mike recently, and this all kind of ties together. So let's start by talking about the wonderful world of Squat Cobbler, where Mike and I do the Google Hangout. We typically record 2 shows in a session, a recommendation show and an Alice Cooper album review. We record them as they're not a public hangout. We do it private, and we pull the whole video down. I pull it then into Audacity, which is some free, very nice sound editing software, and chop it up, clean it up, have come to the very grim realization that I do kind of a verbal drum solo a lot when I talk. There'll be large periods of time when we're having a conversation where there'll be a string that I edit out regularly where I'm like, and so I don't really know why I do that.
So you're like Steven Tyler.
Yeah, I must get possessed by Steven Tyler on occasion during them.
Steven Tyler.
It's a humbling experience to do that, but clean up some of the coughs if we have it, or there's some feedback or noise. Clean that up in Audacity, create the MP3 file, upload it to the blog post, write the blog post. Mel did a great job in setting up the Nurture and Support blog that once I connect all that stuff and hit publish, it slides its way over to iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play. So it gets populated and all those things. And then later, as time permits, I take the audio and just slap a Squat Cobbler logo on it and put the video out on YouTube as well. Just so it's available. So it's another way to consume it. And our Alice stuff is done pretty well that way. We're getting a lot of folks kind of finding the show that way versus iTunes and listening to it.
Yeah, Alice has really become our driving thing on YouTube, right?
Yeah, it has, because when I kind of look at the channel traffic, there's been this kind of progressive, steady growth on a regular basis to the amount of daily views continues to grow. But it's by about 400% over the past year. And it's almost all on the back of the Alice Cooper stuff because we get a large number. Now we
both expressed our excitement over this in different ways. You sent me that chart, text form. I expressed it in a slightly different way and sent it back to you.
Yes, you did. Hence
the
dilemma.
What that looked like.
Mike drew images on a very, very encouraging kind of upward moving graph in terms of traffic. He found a way to depict through imagery excitement, and there was a heart. There was a heart, so happiness and excitement. And so there was a heart, and then there were other images to express excitement on there, which all done in pink, by the way, which I thought was a nice touch.
You're welcome. Now, we do have a little bit, and I know we're going to talk about our other shows, but did you want to talk about how sometimes excitement can get us into trouble, or did you want to save that for later?
No, I think now's a good time, because this is a very good example of the nature of the beast, which is I discover encouraging news in the Google in the YouTube analytics portion about the traffic to the site, and I capture the graph and I send it to Mike to share the excitement. Mike returns it to me with what would be adult-related symbolism on it to express his excitement, and that's Mike. That's what that happens. That's what we do on the show. It's all fun and good. But what I've discovered is that YouTube's community guidelines frown upon certain language and topics. And we've done a wide variety of shows. But one of the most recent recommendation shows, which you will not find on YouTube, and we'll talk about it in a second, was a pretty tame affair. Mike recommended.
Yes, it was. I was actually quite surprised that this was the episode that brought us some issues.
I could have understood other episodes getting the friendly little notice from YouTube that says, hey, we all make mistakes, and you've just made one. You violated our community guidelines. One strike on you, and we have suspended your access to do live streaming for the next 90 days. So I've tended to host these when we recorded it, but until September 20th, Mike's going to have to be doing the hosting, assuming we stay on the good side of YouTube. I went through it, and I think I found they didn't really provide any specifics beyond saying it was a community guidelines violation. And it was a tame show. This was not the Scooby-Doo porn show. This was Mike recommending a piece of music. Which
I still contend is a relatively tame episode. I'm quite proud of myself.
And I wish we were in a world where you could be held accountable to that position versus me. But because these things are on my channel, I've got to live with Mike's worldview. But again, this was one I was just stunned. I was like, really? And I got it within 20 minutes of posting it to YouTube. I get the note that says you violated, and I'm like, this episode? And I did, going in a little deeper towards the end, there was a reference to, and this is the other kicker, my guess is the segment of the show that got us crossways with them was a recounting of content that was on a Dylan Knows, that was on something else. It was on at least two other shows.
It was on the Snarkalic Radio Reunion.
Yeah, the Snarkalic Radio Reunion. And then it was on Squat Cobbler, and Squat Cobbler was the one that got the hammer. But I believe the difference is I monetize the videos on the YouTube channel, the Squat Cobbler. So that's why you get the lovely skip this ad at the beginning sometimes. It's not going to fund Mike and my's early retirement, but it's kind of a fun thing to do to kind of see how it works. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to put stuff on YouTube is to play with that, try and build a community and see what we could do about kind of connecting some level of advertising, at least at a low level. And I think Google takes a much stricter look at monetized content. Now, as I read up on this, I thought a lot of times the punishment for that was, we're not going to allow you to monetize this video, which was a punishment I would have gladly accepted in this case versus losing my ability to live stream. So now the new reality is I go in and I do the edit and I do the podcast. It's a cleanup. I really don't touch any of the content of the podcast. It goes out on iTunes. iTunes is awesome because it gives us a chance to put the explicit tag on there. I know Mike feels that it might be overkill on some occasions, that it's not really explicit, but I think we're well served to put explicit on most of the Squat Cobblers, and I can do that.
So I can tell you guys something right now, and this is just because if anyone, all joking aside, if anybody is interested in getting into podcasting, or even if you're a musician or a comedian or whatever it is, and you're trying to get stuff up on iTunes, I can tell you right now, one thing that is serious is if you ever nation that you might have an issue with an explicit tag, put an explicit tag on your stuff no matter what.
Yeah, I'd agree wholeheartedly, and that's really not, unfortunately, on YouTube an option. It's not the model they have in place. They will do some things about requiring you to be 18 or older to view certain content, but you don't get to make that call. They make that call. So it's a different environment. So a lot of it is, if you are getting into it, one, follow Mike's advice to say if you're going on to iTunes, don't try and thread the needle on it. If you think it might be explicit, it is explicit. Mark it as explicit. And you just need to kind of know the rules of the road. And I just had missed that I probably needed to be a little more vigilant about the language and subject matter of content that's going out on YouTube. And so now I'll go through and do the editing. Podcasts will be like they've always have been, but then I will come back and make a special YouTube version where I take certain segments of the show and pull them out, which is mostly Mike. So just so you know.
It's the Kelly-only version of Squat Cobbler.
So what do you think about that, Mike? Oh, that was a really good point. I'm glad you said it. No, and so I've done this for Dada. So we just put out our review of Dada. And at this point, I'm being hyper cautious because strike one is I lose the ability for 90 days to host a live stream. Strike two, I lose the ability to upload content for 2 weeks. Strike three, they can terminate my account. and that would be a bummer. So I'm trying to fly straight right now and go in. So even on Dada, I went through. I would say in going through it, I cut out 45 seconds worth of content. But by doing that, I knew that I was rock solid, that I wasn't going to get a nasty gram. Although I still was sweating it out because it was such a surprise on the previous episode that I got dinged. So far, so good. And so we're going to have to do that. So I think if you are doing this stuff, it is really important when you make choices like, yes, I want to monetize my videos, kind of thoroughly understand the environment. And YouTube's a fantastic platform to do things with. You're just going to face certain limitations. And it's unfortunately, it's not crystal clear because it's not like there can't be any language, but there's like some sort of tipping point on language when they deem it as excessive, and then you're in violation. And there's no clear guidance on that.
There isn't. And just for the record, I need to make 2 apologies right now in public for everyone. Kelly, I am sorry if something that I said slapped on the wrist by YouTube. I am genuinely sorry for that.
No need to apologize. It's the show. And it's just, again, it was just understanding the environment. I appreciate the sentiment there, but not an apology moment for me, but it's just a good lesson for us. It's just, again, now I know what I need to do for YouTube stuff, and I probably should have known it before. So what you're going to see, folks, is when you listen to this podcast on iTunes, you will have heard Mike's funny little second apology. If you happen to be listening it on YouTube, that's not going to be there. So playing it safe, avoiding strikes. But I think that the second apology was warranted. YouTube listeners, you'll just have to go to our blog and listen to it there to get the full context.
And maybe, you know what? Maybe this is a blessing in disguise because now that we're pulling all these new YouTube listeners because of the Alice episodes, you guys really should go on iTunes, go on the blog, and check out some of the other content on there. Because not only do you get all the other Squat Cobbler stuff, you get the show that kind of kicked this off and Kelly and Mel's podcasting network, the Nurture and Support Show.
And a little bit of A Saul and Battery, too, here and there, although I haven't been posting those to the blog as much as I should. So, yeah, definitely check it out. And the blog posts are nice because you not only you get the podcast audio, but if for Alice episodes and for recommendation shows, if there's related videos or other links to share, we put those in the blog post. So there's sometimes a goodie or two in there in addition. It's an easy way if we've made a social media recommendation for you to follow people. So if you do get a chance, it's included in the YouTube description. It's easy to do a search on Nurture and Support. We're on the first page there. Yeah, we'd love a little more traffic to the blog because there is some stuff out there, and we got to do that count because I think we're going to be surprised when we look at total number of episodes.
Yeah, we definitely do have to do that count because it's in the hundreds now.
Easily.
Even if you just take the shows that we've done together. You've done with Mel with Nurture and Support. I have my stuff that I've done with Christian, and as well as we do the Opium Den thing sporadically on the Pagan YouTube channel.
Yeah, and then 130? How many episodes of Snarkaholic Radio were there?
I think with the reunion shows, it's 100 and something. But then you have Talking. How many of those were there?
There's a keeper.
And now we have a decent catalog of A Saul and Battery on there. How many episodes are you guys at of Nurture and Support?
Around 133, I think the last one that was posted was like 133.
And we were in double digits on Social Sins, which we were kind of forced to stop temporarily because of some other stuff that was outside of our control that was going on in people's personal lives and things like that had to be put on hold. But that is coming back, and there's actually a ton of Opium Dens that are going to be hitting the band YouTube page, and I want to have Kelly on a lot more of those as well. That had to take a break as well because we've actually been moving our studio. So if you've heard me on, the only thing I've kept up on during that period was actually doing these Squat Cobblers with Kelly. So you can hear there is some like differences in audio quality here and there. And that's because I was in the process of moving the studio where we work.
You're sounding really good tonight. Are you settled in, about 90% settled in, or still?
Say about 90% settled in. Most of my recording rack is here now, so over the next couple of episodes we do, everything should be settled down, and I'm hoping it'll be even better audio quality because once I do a little bit of work to the walls in this room, I'm putting up audio panels and stuff like that, so it's going to be like acoustic paneling.
For the Squat Cobbler stack, from a technology and tool perspective, it's Hangouts on Air, Audacity, and I really don't do much in terms of graphic work. And when I do, I use about a 1950s version of Paint Shop Pro, which I've never continues to run on systems. I just love that graphics package. That's just if I'm dropping fonts on anything for the most part, or doing a little bit of cropping. Although I'm slowly but surely getting better with GIMP, which is some free graphics software from there. You may notice a theme here that most of the stuff I'm using is free. But so GIMP more and more for the graphics, Audacity for the audio. Mel got the work set up with some space for the podcast to go on, for it to go onto iTunes, and as well as and then we use name's going to elude me, WordPress. We use WordPress to actually do the publishing to the blog. So those are all the pieces for that.
And it's similar on my end, like the stuff that I do with Christian with Social Sins and with the Opium Den. It's similar setup in that we do use Google Hangouts, or predominantly utilize Google Hangouts. I have used Skype a couple of times for different ones back in the radio station days when I would have certain artists on who weren't friendly and they prefer to use Skype. One that jumps to my mind right off the bat when we did like Guns N' Roses interviews and stuff like that, like they always wanted to use Skype for their stuff. We have done stuff over the phone. Station days, we actually had a show on there called The Night Train Effect, almost entirely with cell phones, and then just dropped in audio programs and cleaned up and edited.
Yeah, and what's nice with Hangout, it's something that's called Uber Meeting that you can actually, and we've had mixed results with it, but you can actually dial into a Google Hangout, give somebody a number, and they can call in, and Mike and I might be participating through the Hangout software, but the third party might be in on a phone. I don't think we've done one of those yet. We've played with it a little bit, but that may be something down the road we try out.
Absolutely. And I have done the phone call thing with Skype, and that's worked out really well for us. Kelly uses Audacity for all of his audio cleanup. With Social Sins, Christian does the majority of the audio post-production on that, or all of the audio post-production on that. He is a big Pro Tools guy. For anything that I do audio-wise, I use a program called Magix. It's Magix. It's a German program. It's very similar to Pro Tools, but for my purposes, I find it easier to use and more customizable to my needs. So I've always used Magix for everything. And I use that for anything with the band or even editing podcasts. And the visuals, if you guys ever get a chance to check out the Opium Den, which is a short podcast that we do on the band channel, that has like little animations only on YouTube. That's not something that's available on iTunes. So those animations, I do all of that within the audio editing program as well.
Yeah, and I think a really important thing to note for Social Sins, A Saul and Battery, Nurture and Support, Squat Cobbler, any of these, VexX is never like in the top 3 of guests that any of these shows want on. He'll come on, we'll do it, but he's not like top tier. He's a bit of a seat filler.
Like, hey, we need somebody. We got nobody else. Let's see what Vex is up to.
Yeah, he's a solid third choice a lot of times if we're looking to line somebody up.
So who would be 1 and 2?
Well, of course, we know who your number 1 would be. Your best friend forever, Rebecca Kennedy. But she is fantastic. And so Rebecca's always very accommodating to kind of come on, sometimes with very short notice, because if you go back to the Squat Cobbler Snapchat debate, a show that I would also argue had content on it that was not necessarily, maybe I shouldn't say that, but
now I feel like you're just ratting us out.
Yeah, I need to probably shut up about some of this stuff because I don't need them to go, well, we should probably investigate this a little bit further. We pinged Rebecca like a day or two before we were doing that. Said, hey, we're going to do this because Mike and I knew we were going to destroy Bennett 2-on-1. So we said, we got to give him a fighting chance. So brought Rebecca on to kind of be on the pro Snapchat side. They still lost badly, but she came on really quick. So she's on the short list. I want to get Terry Ivins back on again. She came on in the early days of Snarkalic Radio. She is funny and super nice and very cool, but she's out on the West Coast and got a pretty full schedule. So she's always high on my list. Rachel Rigda is another one too. That's been a long time since we've had Rachel on anything, and Rachel lives in the future in Australia, so it's always a little bit tricky to get her lined up as well. So those are a couple of my favorites. And then again, if none of them are available, I start thinking about Vex. How about you?
Well, of course, Sarah, I love doing shows with you. As a show, we've done hundreds of these together. So there's nobody I would rather do podcasts with than Rebecca. I mean, you.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels between the two of us.
Right, right. I often confuse you guys. I have to go back though to like as far as guests and stuff like that. Like obviously, Rebecca's awesome. Briggs from Psychotica was one of my favorite guests. We had him a couple times on the radio show. He's always awesome because Pat's a great guy. We have a close relationship with Psychotica. We share a band member. My band shares a band member with them, and they're just great guys. They were a huge influence on me. Pat's such a gracious guest to have on. He's very game for whatever you want to do. So he was always great. When we had Ron from Guns N' Roses on, he was really great. Hank 3, though, is one that always stands out to me because when I first started at the radio station, he was the first person who agreed to come on and do an interview. This was before we had any content whatsoever. I basically had nothing. Nothing. There was no show. There was no Snarkalic Radio even at that point. In fact, that's how Snarkalic Radio got started because once we posted a little bit of the content, we needed to have more. So that's how I got to talking to Tony and all of that came about to begin with. But Hank 3 is somebody I'm always extremely grateful for because he was somebody that I crossed paths with a few times before. We had done some stuff for different websites like articles and things like that. And as soon as I started up the radio station, he was ready to go, ready to do an interview.
Another thing that we're super excited to put together, we're in the very early planning stages. Now, because we record some of these in advance, I'm guessing as episode 37, this is probably going to air about 3 weeks from when we're recording this right now, Mike. So I'm not sure what's going to happen in between now and then in terms of what we do in terms of talking to folks on Twitter and etc. But it was Mike's idea. There's a tool called Rabb.it, which I recommended a while back on Nurture and Support, which is a great way for a fairly decent number of people to come together online and have a shared viewing experience of something on Netflix, a video on YouTube, anything you've got an account for that you can log in and bring up in a browser. You can share with people in your room, and so you can all watch it together, and then you've got the ability to choose the fidelity of chat you want. You can have full audio and video. Now you start to get the numbers up of folks up there, and it gets a little doggy, but you can do audio only, or you can just do a straight chat window, so it's kind of real time, so it's a little bit closer to kind of like the Twitter live snarking there, but it's all self-contained. It's a really simple and good environment. Mike had suggested that we start to do a more regularly scheduled squat cinema, where we would pick a particular movie. Initially here, leaning towards Friday nights. Now, Patrick, the Tertullian on Twitter, Patrick does Late Night Movie Club on Saturdays, and that's watch the YouTube video and sync up through a chat room on the Sci-Fi Designs, and it's a great environment. It's a great group of folks, but it does require you all to independently start the YouTube video. And people have to time check on occasion, like, where are you at? Where am I at? And this environment chases all that out. But we certainly don't want to we're not interested in competing with Late Night Movie Club, and that's not really the intent. But the idea is to say, hey, when you want to get together as a group and watch a movie, let's do that.
Yeah, so this is more, I see this more like not trying to compete with what anybody else is doing. Because one of the things, like I started talking about this with the band, and they were like, oh, what are you guys going to be like, horror hosts, like that old school kind of thing? And because that's cool, and we all grew up on that, and we all love that kind of stuff. And then you have, Late Night Movie Club and different, other things that people are running. And I envision this as something really that's kind of its own. Like, if you like Kelly and I and you kind of like our personalities, think of it more like us hosting a rowdy party where we all watch a movie.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be good. The barrier to entry is kind of making sure we get the folks to get a Rabb.it account, which is free, so you don't have any problems there, and friend up so it's easy for us to find and invite and connect. Although we can actually just share the link to the room as well, so we can do that on Twitter, and we have all sorts of people kind of come in and join us. So I'm excited to get it going. Don't know where we'll be in terms of when this airs and versus where we're at and standing this up, but would love your input. So if you like this idea or hate this idea or have suggestions how it could be a cooler idea, hit Mike or I up and let us know, because I'm excited about it, because it'll be fun, one, to go through the process of, so what are we going to watch? And then just try and kind of build it up here. And it's just a great chance to kind of get together and have everybody check in. So I'm super excited about it. It will be one that there's no record available. It'll be, we do it and we're done. Whether or not,
you know what, that's an important thing. Not just because of our current situation, but just as a heads up to you guys in advance, consider yourselves warned.
Yes. Yeah, because there are no community guidelines within, or Mike sets the community guidelines for Squat Cinema, and they will probably be fairly liberal guidelines, would be my guess. So buckle up. But I think it'll be a lot of fun. If you've got ideas on how we can make it even better, connect it, what would be good, let us know. We're working on figuring out exactly how to promote it to let folks know what's happening. Probably do a dry run with a smaller group of friends and family, kind of make sure we got the whole thing going. But we're going to take all comers on it. I think it'll be fun. So I'm looking forward to it. So Squat Cinema is coming. Now I wouldn't be surprised if in future Squat Cobblers we report out on what our experience was on some of these. But in terms of actual capturing of comments made or screenshots or all that, you're okay.
Yeah, which is always a good thing. We want no record of whatever happens. You have to actually experience Squat Cinema. We might talk about like some of the cool stuff that we do, but you guys are going to want to check it out for yourselves. Because in my mind, we haven't done one of these yet, but in my mind, this is a bunch of friends like at a party, sitting around drinking, cracking jokes, and watching bad movies.
Yeah, and what's better than that? That's what we're thinking of doing. We're going to get it set up and going, and again, welcome everybody's input, and excited about that. So we've covered
Now,
some of our.
do you already have any ideas of what a movie or two that you'd like us to do?
So I know one I would love for us to do, which is Bubba Hotep, because I just love that movie, and of course Army of Darkness. It's great for me, greatest movie of all time. But Bubba Hotep, I think, would be one that there'd be a decent number of people that weren't exposed to it and would be enjoyable. So that's there. I'm willing to give Monster Dog another run. The Alice Cooper movie Monster Dog. Never been a huge fan of that. Like a couple of the songs in it, but not a big Monster Dog fan in particular. So I'm open to that.
I absolutely love Monster Dog, so I'm completely behind screening that.
And the great news is I've got a copy from Mel, who we certainly hope will be joining us as well in these, Ice Pirates, which is a super cheesy 80s sci-fi movie that's pretty solid as well. So that could be a candidate as well. What's on your short list? I don't know if Faces of Snuff is going to be a premiere one for us.
No, I was thinking more. Well, first off, there's so many great movies we could do. Obviously, the Evil Dead movies and the Phantasm movies are my favorites. So I would love to do something, maybe even do something like if we have a long weekend or something, maybe like around the holidays, we could pick something like, say, Evil Dead and do Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, if you were up for doing something like that.
Yeah, I think that, and I think the Phantasm one would be pretty cool too.
Yeah, I would love to do something like that. Another thing that occurred to me that I think could be really cool at some point to work into this is you and I both know a lot of actors and actresses and directors and producers. I think it'd be kind of cool to have somebody on as a guest and watch their movie with them.
I agree. And so no promises, even though Terry Ivins and I are deep, close personal friends. But wouldn't it be cool to watch Piranaconda with Terry Ivins with us? And the egg.
Oh, that would be great.
The prop egg would join us as well. Yeah, I think because we could pull some folks in that are connected to some of the stuff, which would be pretty cool. We were lucky enough through Snarkalic Radio to get the director and writer of Big Ass Spider, and so it might be interesting to see if we can get him back again too. That could be cool. Yeah, I like that idea to actually bring, work a couple of the kinks out. The challenge will be, do those individuals have a Rabb.it account? Do they know what Rabb.it is? Are they willing to take the time? But we can sort that out.
Yeah, I think there's some easy workarounds for that if we had to deal with any of those kind of bumps in the road.
And Mike doesn't think I know this, but I know this. He's pitching this. Oh, yeah, it'll be really cool. We need to do this Squat Cinema and all that. If he doesn't think that I already know that the way this is going to play out is we're going to watch nothing but Rebecca Kennedy movies, and he's going to invite her and say, "Hey, Rebecca, I'm hosting these things just to continue to suck up to Rebecca. I know where this is going. You're not fooling me."
It's funny you say that because I was just about to say we could have Rebecca on and we could screen Bastard.
House hunting. Gosh, there's a couple other ones. Yeah, there's a bunch. I want to get the one where and I can't remember the name of the movie, but she was a slutty cheerleader in one of her early movies. I want to hear the backstory of the slutty cheerleader from Rebecca.
How did you get into character as slutty cheerleader?
What did you draw upon? That'd be cool. Yeah.
No, that could be really cool. And don't worry, I wasn't going to suggest Faces of Snuff.
Probably wise, I think.
If I was going to suggest anything that I was related to, which obviously I wouldn't do, something that I was connected to. The only one I could think that would be vaguely appropriate would be Evil Bong.
So is that available on something? Are we going to be able to get to that through a streaming service?
Yeah, that's everywhere. Yes.
Okay, cool. Good.
In fact, currently on both Amazon and Hulu, you can watch it as the original movie or the Elvira hosted version.
Ooh, fancy. Well, we may have to think about that being the premiere episode. We'll sort it out. But I think I'm definitely down for that.
Yeah, that would be the only thing I was involved in. Or cool, because I've threatened to do this for a while. So I don't know if you know this, Kelly, but technically Evil Bong wasn't my first movie. There's a movie called Petrified, which I am an executive producer on, and I have never seen this movie, not a single frame of this movie. I saw a trailer for it. That's as close in contact as I've ever had with this film.
So that might be good for all of us. New for you and new for everybody else.
But I don't actually, because I've never seen it, I don't know if it's something that would push the boundaries beyond what we should be screening. Yeah. I can verify Evil Bong should be fine.
And maybe we'll even do shorts before the main feature. And of course, I don't know how we could do anything else but to have Dylan Lang's college film has an opening short before we watch a main movie.
That would be the perfect open. Like if we were going to do Evil Bong as a premiere and have Dylan short before it.
There you go. I think we may have something here. Okay, so we've talked about our new realities in terms of some things we're working through in distribution, the way we do some things. We didn't really talk much about A Saul and Battery, but that's one that's a hangout, that's a live hangout on air. We originally, the first year we did that, we did it right after the show, and then just logistically it turned out better to kind of do it a couple days later. But that's cameras on, but it's actually cameras on a couple figures versus the actual faces of folks. And it's live. So that's easy from a production standpoint because that's talk and stop and it's out on YouTube.
Absolutely. Now, do you have, for any of your podcasts that you're involved in, all of this stuff that you do, is there anybody that you have that's on like a wish list that you'd love to get on one of these shows?
I mean, we had a pretty good run during Snarklock Radio getting a lot of folks on, and that gets carried over to some of the other shows. The actress in Troll 2 that played the kind of witch lady was one that I thought would be. She just seems like an incredibly interesting person. So, and we were close with her, but it just didn't pan out. So she'd kind of be fun. Vanilla Ice would be fun, and I would love to get someone from Alice's band, Chuck Garrick, Nina Strauss, Ryan Roxy. Any of those folks would be pretty awesome as well. But yeah, I don't really have a huge one. I guess I wouldn't mind a return to is we actually had Julianne Emery from Better Call Saul and now on Preacher, who's a remarkable lady, big geek, big Star Wars fan, incredibly nice, loves her bacon. She's awesome all the way around. I'd love to have her back on again.
Not floppy bacon.
Not floppy bacon. And you need to pick it up and it needs to be like a stick. And you got to cook it in a cast iron pan. And boy, if you ever microwave a baked potato, you're no friend of Julianne's anymore. So I just think she's awesome. And so I love her. And then I guess kind of tied to that, Ray Seahorn from Better Call Saul too would be another one that I'd love to talk to. Is anybody on your short list?
Well, at the top, obviously, would be Alice Cooper.
Of course. Yeah, yes.
Or just anyone affiliated with Alice Cooper. His solo band with the Alice Cooper group, anybody from that camp would be great. Ray Seahorn would be amazing. We're both huge fans of her work on that show, obviously. Beyond that, you mentioned Vanilla Ice, which could actually be pretty cool and might actually be doable. We'll talk about that.
I shoot for people that I feel like I got a shot, at least to some degree, and it sounds like there may be even a little bit more there, so that'd be cool. But it's been the very cool thing about doing all of these is that so many of these folks are so approachable, and so whether it was Terry Ivins or Rebecca or Rachel or any of these folks, you ended up talking to them on Twitter some, and then you just asked the question about, hey, we do this podcast, would you like to come on? And I don't think I've ever had anyone say no. Sometimes it may be, yeah, I'd like to do it, and then sometimes a schedule thing comes into it, but they've all been very approachable and willing to do it, which is a very cool thing, and it's just kind of neat that you can talk about some of the stuff that you're passionate about, and the folks that are involved with it oftentimes are very open to visiting with you and giving you a little bit more. So that's a very cool thing.
Yeah, I really have to say it's been a great experience in dealing with everybody. I don't really think there's been anybody who's been, and I'm not just saying this, like we really haven't had a bad guest.
Well, Vex. He's okay. No, we haven't. Yeah, and that's the other thing is you don't know coming in there in terms of how's this going to work out. Is it going to be super awkward? Or is the
Believe
person
me, like I've had those, like going back to the early radio station days, and even before that. Something a lot of people don't know is I used to write a music column, and I would get these sort of one-off jobs for different websites like Yahoo or AOL when that was a thing, and they would just send me like crazy places to talk to these people who I have no connection to or anything like that. And there was some really tense, awkward interactions that happened over the years, and we really haven't had any of that on the podcast or on Snarkelic Radio.
We've been super lucky on that. Everybody's been so friendly and funny and interesting, and a quite the cross section. If you look across all the different folks we've had on, it's a wide variety of folks, but they've all been quite cool. So that's been pretty awesome. And I look forward one day to be able to host a live video stream and have someone else on. But for a while here, we'll have Mike do the honors, and we'll sort through that.
And I will also add before we get off, since it feels like we're wrapping up a little bit, anybody out there who's thinking about starting a podcast, and that you invite Kelly and I on.
You were a very regular guest on Nurture and Support. I've been a guest on some of yours, but I don't really count when like you're on the show that I'm doing or I'm on a show that you're doing. I don't count that as a guest, and I don't really know exactly how to depict the Dylan stuff. But I think we need to be a true guest on something, because we'll be awesome guests. We promise. We'll be well. I'll be well behaved, and we'll be good guests.
Yeah, you and I have never, like, I've done podcasts like in relation to the band and stuff like that, where I've done it with them and done it without you in that context. But you and I together as guests, as podcasting partners, as guests, that we've never done before.
Yeah, that'd be cool to do. So if you got a podcast out there and you'd like to talk to the fascinating people that put this episode together, then go ahead and hit Mike or I up. We would love to join your podcast sometime.
And I half-heartedly promise not to talk about any celebrities' no parts.
That would be good. There may actually be some contractual language that gets put into place for kind of future appearances and all that.
Oh, well, that's a good point, though, if we are going to be a guest on other podcasts. So this is something, I don't know if you've ever come across this. And again, everybody's been so cool. This hasn't really been a thing. But going back to early radio days and then mostly prior to radio days, I would get a lot of people who had like a list of things you weren't allowed to talk about. So what would be your like off-limits topics? Just so anyone who's listening to this, as for them, knows in advance.
Don't ask me what my favorite kind of porn is. That would be one requirement that I might actually share with somebody else on this podcast. Beyond, I think, kind of family information, because I just never, I like to share ideas and talk things through there, but anytime I've signed up for this, but nobody else who I'm around has signed up for it, so I just probably stay off of a lot of family stuff, but that'd be about it. Can't imagine you've got a particularly long list of things that you say don't ask me about.
It's two things. There's only two things I've ever asked to not talk about, and these were just situations where we were being interviewed for band-related stuff. I won't talk about my family, the same as you. Use my real name on everything. I know that there's a lot of people who have either changed their names or used stage names and different things like that. I have been, and not so much because of the band stuff, but some of the film projects that I've worked on have been a little bit controversial. You've seen some of the reviews of Faces of Snuff, for example.
Yes.
Not everybody loves all that stuff. So, because of that, like, I don't talk about my family or my personal life beyond what directly crosses over into this stuff. And the other thing is I won't answer questions about bands that I'm not in.
Those seem fair. Very fair.
Yeah, because I got a lot, especially for a while, there was a lot of questions. After we had done the song Bitter, there was a lot of people asking me questions about Guns N' Roses and similar things with other bands that I've worked with. And I am not here to speak for someone else. So those are the only two things that I've ever kind of just my family, and I can't speak for some other artist.
So this was a little bit different, Squat Cobbler. We wanted to kind of give folks an update on some of the things we're sorting through a little bit, while you'll start to see perhaps some minor differences between YouTube content and podcast content. And we wanted to kind of mention Squat Cinema. We're very, very excited about that. Hope you will be as well.
I really can't stress enough how excited about Squat Cinema I am.
I think it's gonna be fun. I think it's gonna be very fun. And the next time you hear from us,
that's really why I'm looking forward to it.
For me, this is why I've done basically any of the stuff that I've done. The concept of community building, that idea of, hey, here's some shared interest and some interesting people, and we can kind of interact and talk about it and get different points of view. And what better way to kind of build a community than to get together on a Friday night, kick back, watch a good movie, have a couple drinks, and have some fun. So I think it's fantastic. I love the idea. So we'll see how it goes. The next time you hear from Mike and I, it will be the Alice Cooper album Trash, which where we continue to make our way through the column. So this was a little atypical Squat Cobbler. Not that there's a typical Squat Cobbler, but we just thought we'd kind of catch you up on some things and talk about podcasting and other things in general. So appreciate you bearing with us through that this week, and look forward to talking to all of you again soon. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.